Hello and welcome to For the Love of Truth. This is episode 228 and is another in the Back to Health series. Today I am speaking to Graham Abbott about his story that starts more than 20 years ago when he started to become very sick and suffer with mobility and pain issues. Later on, he was diagnosed with Ehlers Danlos Syndrome. Graham very kindly is very open and frank in his discussions about his health. And in particular, I would suggest you pay attention to what happened to him in the last couple of years, where he has taken complete responsibility for his own health, made some substantial changes to his diet, as an example, and is in such good health now compared to where he was that he says people at his local sailing club do not even recognize him. If you have a story you'd like to tell about your health and your journey to recovery, then I would like to talk to you about it. The very best way to reach me is to go to fortheloveoftruth.co.uk and go to the Contact Us page and connect with me through the web form there. And in closing, you guys are amazing, and I'm looking forward so much to catching up with you in the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye. And just before we move across the video, I just wanted to let you know that Graham was outside while we were recording this, and there is some wind noise, particularly towards the last 10 minutes or so of the podcast episode. So, Graham, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's lovely to finally meet you after all our emails back and forth.
And it's good to see you, Adrian, as well. I'm really grateful for this. I hope I've got something to say to people, particularly who've got Ehlers Danlos, which is what I was diagnosed with.
Okay.
And I think I might be able to help. You never know.
All right. Well, would you want to tell me your story then? And if I get lost or confused, I'll ask any questions.
Yeah, sure. Right, I'll try. It's difficult to know where to start. I had a normal childhood, I guess.
Yeah.
As normal as you can.
Yeah.
Ended up working at GCHQ after going to college and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Always been a cyclist. Always cycled miles from when I was about 10 or 11.
Yeah.
Used to get on my bike, ride from Plymouth up to Dartmoor, all over the place. It was what I did.
Mm-hmm.
It was my mental health. It was everything, and was
Mm-hmm.
for a long time. Then ended up, we were posted to Cyprus. Ended up working with the MOD for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Kept cycling, kept mountain biking. One of the things I did was I used to have fairly painful knees all the time. I suppose looking back, probably had painful legs all my life, really. Never thought about it like that before. I used to cycle 15 miles to see the physiotherapist and then cycle 10 miles to work and then 10 miles home again at the end of the day. I used to do that a couple of times a week. And you think people thought I was completely balmy, and it probably was, really. But just loved it. I loved that, the sheer freedom of cycling, just going out the door. Nobody knew where I was going. My wife didn't know where I was. I used to, when we came back from Cyprus, used to ride to work, 10 miles to work, and then do 40 or 50 miles on the way home after working hard all day. And just, It was nothing. It was what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Then we went to Cyprus again for a second time.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived at the bottom of the mountain. If you know Cyprus, bottom of Troodos Mountain, we lived on one of the army bases. But work was right at the top of the mountain.
Okay.
And I had to be in at 7 a.m. every day.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I couldn't cycle there anymore.
No.
So I ended up driving to work, and the cycling took less and less. And as I did less and less, pain got more and more, tiredness got more and more.
Mm-hmm.
There was an obvious clue there that I didn't really get at the time, and certainly doctors didn't help me find that.
Mm-hmm.
Work was stupidly frustrating. It's the only civilian technician with a group of army chaps, and it was quite hard going anyway. So we came home from that tour with me being ill. I ended up flying home and having tests, and found I had a autoimmune kidney problem, which I still don't understand where that's come from. Had stupidly high blood pressure, even though I was normal weight and fit and healthy, or good all the time, if that's fit and healthy. Um, a lot of this is going to be about work if I'm not careful. So I came back again, had a stupid job change from something I enjoyed to something I didn't enjoy because just couldn't cope with being an electronics technician anymore. Just couldn't physically do the job anymore.
Yeah.
Ended up doing paperwork and it was all frustrating. Then the Afghan War came along after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And I did something rather silly, I guess. I questioned at work why we were going to Afghanistan because it made no sense. Still makes zero sense. Certainly made no sense at the time.
Yeah.
So I essentially moved out of my job into an even worse job. And at the time, I've skipped a huge amount. By that time, I was walking on crutches all the time. I had really bad sciatica.
What sort of age were you back then?
Let me think. Probably 30-ish.
Whoa. Okay.
So young.
Yeah.
30, I think, getting on 30, 32, something like that.
Uh-huh.
So I want to do a separate bit about doctors at the end, if that's all right. So
Of course it is, yeah.
I'll catch up with that at the end.
Yeah.
But anyway, I had a back operation that's essentially left me incontinent and unable to poo properly. I've got a catheter now that I've had for a long time.
Uh-huh.
But the back operation worked in extent that it got me back to work and stopped the sciatica.
Yeah.
I stopped driving then as well because I couldn't deal with the clutch on the Golf that we had at the time.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to jump a bit. Ended up with a different job. Also ended up using a wheelchair at work for a couple of years, just because I couldn't cope with work any other way. I just couldn't. Even working part-time was physically too much. I was so tired and in so much pain all the time. Just couldn't do it any other way. And it helped. And it also gave me a plus that I started playing wheelchair tennis.
Okay.
Not amazingly. I was pretty good. I've always been pretty good at just about everything I tried sports-wise, apart from football.
Yeah.
So that gave me a new outlet. That was really good. Then what did I do? Then I got DVT in 2006 that probably progressed to my lungs, but they didn't really chase me up at the time properly. And while I was in, they gave me statins without asking me, without telling me what it was. And I ended up on the heart ward, hobbling around on a Zimmer frame with my legs shaking. And they sent me home because they couldn't work out what was going on. When I came home, spoke to my GP, who was actually really good at the time. I can't remember his name, but he was really good. And he said, stop taking the statins. I stopped taking the statins, and within a week, I was absolutely fine again for silly shaking thing that had gone on. So statins definitely weren't good for me. Had another job change, which was a real positive, because I realised quite quickly, really, after the wheelchair, that I was getting weaker and hurting more.
Okay.
Again, now it looks ridiculous. Well, I look back and think, well, of course you were, because how can you use a wheelchair and sit down all day and not get more tired and weak muscles hurt? But at the time, it didn't dawn on me for quite a while. So I gave up in the wheelchair, ended up back on crutches, struggling, got a different job at work and ended up doing photography and video at work, which was really good fun. I really enjoyed doing that. Photography had been a hobby forever, turned my hobby into a job. So it was great. That did me a lot of favors. And then in 2010, there was a lovely scheme in the civil service that went out to find people who were covered under disability discrimination and essentially strongly encourage us to take redundancy.
Isn't that a form of discrimination?
Yeah, exactly. And it suited me at the time. I couldn't wait to get out, but
Yeah.
other people pushed out the door. We actually had an interview with a solicitor as part of it, who said, "Don't do this. This is completely illegal.
Hmm.
They can't do this." But again, it suited me.
Yeah.
We had, it wasn't a stupid amount of money, but a nice amount of money, paid the mortgage off. We moved on, and I started doing self-employed photography and art and T-shirts and all sorts of things.
Okay.
And my health got better for a while. And I can see, again now, looking back, that was a mental thing. Absolutely, totally a mental thing. I'm going to jump, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I've got some rubbish notes here. And then we moved back to Devon. I'm from Plymouth originally.
Yeah.
Youngest daughter was in the last year of juniors. Suddenly made sense. Why don't we just go to Devon? So we've come back, live by the sea now in Paynton.
Yeah.
And that was another mental plus. We bought a lovely house on the top of a hill that we could see the whole of Torbay. It was super. Couldn't afford to run it, and we've moved since, but it was super. So that helped. And again, looking back, it's totally mental, absolutely totally mental. I had a really positive thing, and then physically got better to the where I dug out our pond, made a new pond, did loads there, real physical work there for the first time for a long time.
Yeah.
Fine by any means, still tired, still hurting. Don't know where to jump to really then I woke up in the middle of the night one night with an absolutely incredible pain in one of my knees. And had to call the ambulance and couldn't not do it. And it turned out that, such a lovely spot here, but the fisherman's driving by. I don't know if you can hear the boat.
No, it's all right.
Fishing boats. Yeah. So, and my knee had filled with blood because I'd been on warfarin, blood thinner, since 2006. So I'd spent almost 10 years probably on warfarin, and I'd done something, I twisted it or something, filled with blood, and it was just horrendous.
Yeah.
While I was in hospital there was a poor old chap opposite who lived in Paynton as well, who I've seen since, and they weren't looking after him properly, and I had to go and poke them to go and he had a catheter bag. Obviously I knew about catheters by then, and it was brown in his bag, and I knew he was seriously dehydrated. And they weren't helping him, and it took a lot of prodding to get somebody to come and help. So I'd realised before that they weren't there for our benefit when we were in hospital, and that certainly totally ticked that one. They definitely weren't there for patients, which was really sad to find out. I'm going to jump again. So it ended up, I also heard, I missed a whole big bit. Sorry, I'm really rubbish at this.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. It's interesting.
When we came down here as well, part of moving, we had a choice. We could have gone anywhere really in the southwest.
Yeah.
So I ended up looking and guiding family decisions towards places that had disabled sailing clubs, so sailability sailing clubs.
Yeah.
And I joined the one here on the River Dart and had a fantastic time, still do, with them. I was volunteering, then sailoring, depending on how well I was, and they were very flexible about allowing me to be ill enough to be a disabled sailor sometimes, and then other times just being a volunteer, which was really nice of them. And they certainly, most people really understood why that was. I just couldn't always do what they thought I could do. One day then, I stepped off the quay onto one of the inflatable boats, overstretched my leg and hurt my knee. And I knew I'd hurt it, properly hurt it. I know all of us fall and hurt ourselves all the time, but sometimes you do things and you think, I've done it this time.
Yep.
And it wasn't good. I didn't do anything about it, just don't. And eventually within 3 months, I'd gone to bone-on-bone arthritis in that knee, and in stupid pain and crutches all the time. So since then, I've eventually had a knee replacement, and then the other knee went. I've had another knee replacement. Spent about 2 years on crutches, I reckon, wobbling around and in stupid amount of pain again. The new knees have been amazing, slowly, but they've now. So I'm going to jump, if you don't mind, to the important thing. I hope it's the important thing.
Okay.
Something else I realised, and I understand now that I didn't, that warfarin itself is actually not a good drug to be taking. It stops, again, I'm going to forget the name. I think it's nitric oxide production.
Okay.
Seriously affects nitric oxide production. Nitric oxide is produced by our arteries as a way of protecting them from calcium buildup. So warfarin effectively stops that happening as part of its process. So I realised now, probably because of that, ended up with serious chest pains in 2018, 19, I think. Dates and times, time just flies past me. Ended up with serious chest pain and went to hospital, and found out eventually that I'd got some narrowed arteries, and talk about that. But when I got into hospital, I went on to the cardiac ward, and chap next to me, big fat older chap, clearly diabetic. They were checking his blood sugars.
Yeah.
Got a pile of chocolate on his table, was drinking fizzy drinks all day. And then this trolley comes around early in the morning. A trolley comes around with newspapers, every type of sweet, crisps, soft drinks you've ever seen, for heart patients on the heart ward.
That doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense at all. And I asked about it afterwards. I wrote a letter to them afterwards saying, why are you doing this? And they said, we can't stop it because the hospital have got a contract with somebody who the contract is he can go to every ward in the hospital. How do we end up with a world like that? That's just...
It's a world driven by money. It's not driven by logic.
It's lunacy. But anyway, they fed me rubbish food, and 2 days in, I realised what's going on here. There's something seriously wrong here. So they'd got amazing Wi-Fi, got my iPad. So I spent 2 or 3 days just hitting everything I possibly could about diet. I got no pre-existing views on diet at all.
Yeah.
I'd always been a sort of vaguely keeping it sensible.
Yeah.
Plenty of fruit and veg, but plenty of naughty stuff as well.
Yeah.
Certainly cycling. I used to eat anything I could get hold of and still be. But I put on some weight over the years. And then I found out about ketogenic diets from somebody I really like to mention, which is, I'm going to forget his name now. Oh, isn't it bloody typical? Professor Tim Noakes.
Okay.
Who's a doctor in South Africa, scientist in South Africa. His information was really, really useful. He's a sports scientist, written books about running, one of which I think I might have bought years ago because I used to run half marathons as well. Something else I haven't mentioned. I used to run 38-minute 10Ks for quite a while, which was pretty quick. Yeah. But he'd done an about face. He told everybody to eat lots of carbs and to fuel your running with carbs. And he'd even, with another man, invented one of these carbohydrate sports gel things that everybody carries around with them now.
Oh, yeah.
You can have little special belts to carry them when they're running.
Yeah.
Well, he came up with one of those, and then he realized he was diabetic and looked into diet, and he'd gone ketogenic diet, changed his life completely. He was back. He was an ultra marathon runner, so he was running 50-mile, 60-mile races.
Yeah.
And he'd gone back to that and was beating his times that he was doing 20 years earlier.
Yeah.
So I came home after having the scan and finding out I've got narrowed arteries. In an artery they call the Widowmaker, which is really nice of them to mention that.
Yeah.
Really helpful.
Well, along with everything else, it sounds like they are very helpful. Yeah.
Yes, doctors, eh? Oh, yes, you've got a narrowed Widowmaker artery. My wife enjoyed that, but not quite as much as I did. So I came home and I changed instantly. So I came home Sunday morning and I haven't eaten carbs since. So I just cut out everything instantly, swapped to a fat-based diet, eating lots of eggs, meat, dairy, green veg. I haven't really changed. I lost 20 kilos in 3 months.
Wow.
Vanished off me. I think most of it was water, actually, because I lost an awful lot of it in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Just anti-inflammatory, I guess. That's how it felt. I don't know. And then pain has reduced incredibly. And I've just got energy to the point now where I'm firstly got a job volunteering with the police here in Brixham, which is very near where I am, cleaning vehicles, getting the vehicles set up, taking them for repair and stuff like that, which was good for a while. And then I've got a real job now at Sainsbury's, shopping for home delivery. So I walk for 6 hours.
Wait a second, you were on crutches in a wheelchair.
Yeah. And now walk. So I only do 2 or 3 days a week, but I walk 6 hours, lift, carry, push heavy trolley, and don't stop really. 6 hours. We have a 15-minute break, which I take because it's time to drink coffee. Still enjoy coffee.
Yeah.
And life's changed so much that I can't believe it. I've recently gone back to sailing, to sailability. They've just started to open again after this stupid lockdown.
Yeah.
And people don't recognize me. They don't know who I am. Myself to people I've known for a few years because they haven't seen me for a year or so.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this for about 18 months now. And I'm not lapsed isn't the word. I allow myself to lapse. I had a hot cross bun the other day. I knew I'd had it afterwards because tummy wasn't comfortable.
Yeah.
But see, so I've made this huge change, but I'm not convinced the dietary change was the thing that's changed. I think it was coming to a decision, I'm going to do that. And I stuck with it. Absolutely, totally stuck with it.
Yeah.
And had success. And it's succeeding at something that's, I can't put it into any sense of it really, but succeeding as that has helped me move on and succeed at other things. It also I don't know if this makes sense either really, but when the lockdown started last March, obviously it was ridiculous. I knew it was wrong right from the start, made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I did the opposite. So I went out even more than I would have done normally. I've walked not all during the lockdown, but a lot of it during lockdown. So I've walked from here in Paynton back home along the cliff path to Plymouth.
Yeah.
So it's not all in one go because it's a long way, but like doing 1 day a week for a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I did 2 23-mile day walks at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I've walked 23 miles along hilly coast path.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look back, and 10 years ago, I was on crutches, struggling, in pain.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed by that still. I still almost makes me cry, actually, because where I've come in the last 18 months is just ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so I was doing that. I've also bought my balance is rubbish. I've got one of the results of having DVT and a PE. I've had probably some blood clots in my brain, and neurologist told me. So my balance isn't fabulous. So I've bought a recumbent trike.
Mm-hmm.
So recumbent pedal cycle, an ICE trike made in Falmouth, bought secondhand. And that was great. So I was having, during the first lockdown, doing 25-mile rides on that around. That was really good. So can I move on? I'm going to, if you don't mind, can I say what sorry, lost my, I'm having to hold the camera again. I found a spot on Saturday where there is a tree I could tie the camera to, and sit and lean against another tree. Yeah. And I can't do that today. So what have I done? So done that. One of the things I wanted to mention about diet was vegetable oil. Mm-hmm. One of the things I found quite quickly was that what we call vegetable oil, so seed oils, they were first made to be industrial lubricants. Yeah, in America from cotton seeds, waste cotton seeds. And there's no way we should be eating them. There's absolutely no way. They're just wrong. They shouldn't be in the food chain at all. And they're everywhere. You can't have processed food of any sort without having vegetable oils in them. Yeah. I look at one of the joys of my job is I see what people buy and eat. And I look at the ingredients list on vegan food, for instance, is always got vegetable oil in it. Yeah. Or some sort of, apart from the weird things anyway, like corn, which is soil mold, that they feed in huge stainless steel tanks fed with sugar, but it's actually soil mold that grows on soil originally, which is interesting. But we should be eating vegetable oil. So I think that goes for everybody. I do want to talk about a couple of things. Mm-hmm. Start with doctors. I found over the years what you do mostly with doctors is wait to see them. Mm-hmm. So you go to your GP, you say, my knee's bad, don't know what's going on. The doctor looks at you and says, I don't know what's going on, I'll refer you. And then you wait months to see somebody who isn't particularly interested when you get there. Mm-hmm. And who doesn't really want to do anything. Mm-hmm. So he says, we'll send you for an MRI scan. And this is what happened with my back in 2001, I've written down. Mm-hmm. So I've got horrendous sciatica, on crutches, not at work, really struggling. He says, right, we'll send you for an MRI. I waited for a year for the MRI. Wow. Went back to him and he said, which was months after the MRI, to say, you need an operation on your back. Mm-hmm. I'll put you on the list. And then a year later, have the back operation. Mm-hmm. So we did that, and that's happened all the way through. So I've had problem with my prostate as well. had an operation on my prostate. When they did me a catheter through my tummy at the same time, I waited months for that. And they were helpful and they did the job, but that's fine. But everything is like that. What you do is wait, and you wait, and then you go and see somebody. Neurologists were crackers for that, and the rheumatologists, who were obviously not interested. As soon as you walk in the door, you know they're not going to be interested. They're not going to do anything. Rheumatologists were terrible because they've got nothing to offer anyway. I had a diagnosis eventually of this Ehlers Danlos Syndrome, which is an inherited, supposedly inherited, I'm going to say, I'm not convinced anymore, an inherited condition that gives you overly stretchy joints, pain and all sorts. And their answer is, well, we can't do anything for that. Or you wait to see somebody and you say, I've got Ehlers Danlos, and they say, what's that? And you say, a specialist.
Yeah.
I've come to you, I've waited months to see you, and you don't know anything. In fact, I know a lot more about it than you do.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous. So we mustn't give in to that. I'm not going to do doctors anymore as much unless I absolutely have to. I need to talk about drugs as well. See, I'm trying to think back when I started. I've probably been taking tramadol, certainly for 7 or 8 years, constantly. And I'm not sure that ever did anything, apart from make me a bit dozy. And again, nobody had any options. They were just, don't know what to do. Here's your repeat of tramadol.
Yeah.
And I've been on blood pressure tablets for years as well, varying amounts. I don't really understand why they do that. If you're perfectly fine, feel perfectly fine, and your blood pressure's high, well, so what, really? Surely there should be a way of saying, right, you've got high blood pressure. Why have you got high blood pressure?
Yeah.
But they don't do that. They just throw drugs at you. The warfarin was a huge mistake. In fact, the only drug I'm taking still is the replacement for warfarin. I can't remember what it's called. It's one of the more modern blood thinners, and the side effects are non-existent for me anyway. And they're supposedly safer. I don't know. I can't bring myself to stop it because I know I've had issues before. I don't know why I've had blood clots in my brain. I don't know why I've still got them. Neurologists looked at the scan a few weeks ago and said that's probably the problem. I've still got balance issues and things. So I'm loath to stop taking them. I'm not convinced I need them, but who do I ask whether I need them or not? I mean, nobody's going to help me with that. You can't. It's not the sort of thing you can look up online either, is it? I don't know if anybody's going to find this who thinks or knows they've got Ehlers Danlos. One of the huge mistakes I've made with Ehlers Danlos is joining Facebook groups, supposedly support groups for Ehlers Danlos. But you go on there and everybody, it's like a race to the bottom, I would have said. So it's almost like a competition to be the illest. Yeah. Which is really bizarre. So if you're not bedridden and struggling with everything, nobody wants to know really. If you've got a question, they're not interested because you're not one of the bad ones. And it's just depressing. So I seriously suggest just getting away from that. You've got to do your own research, got to do your own reading about everything. Just not rely on these things, really. The other thing I want to talk about, you're going to ask me a question in a minute and I've got an answer for the question you ask everybody at the end.
Yep.
I don't move on to that. But I do want to talk about something I found recently,
Yeah.
which is German new medicine.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do an introduction to it. There are other people who do that better than I possibly can. But it made sense of the cancers that we've had in our family.
Mm-hmm.
It really did make sense. My father-in-law's girlfriend, partner, died of cancer a few years ago, and she was a really close friend of mine, to the point where she could only have 3 visitors in the hospital, and she chose him and me and one of her sisters. And she had other sisters, so she chose me over one of her sisters, and that meant an awful lot. So we were really close, and I can see how the cancer she had fitted with what German new medicine says about cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And now I see people. One of the programs we watch, it's called Helicopter ER or something. It's one of these follow the ambulance type things.
Mm-hmm.
And they go to people in their houses, and I just want to scream at them, go and look up German new medicine.
Yeah.
Go and have a different view of what's going on, like allergies and things like that. And I think we could all benefit from that. I bought a really good book, very simple, thin book about it. And it's certainly, I mean, it's taken away any fear of cancer from me completely. So I've to the point where I've actually asked the ONS, the NHS, and our local coroner's court whether people die of undiagnosed cancer. Do people actually die? Then they have a post-mortem and find the cause of their death was cancer if they haven't been diagnosed before. And none of them can tell me that.
I wonder why.
It's strange, isn't it?
Mm.
And so bluntly, does being diagnosed with cancer lead to your death? So does the shock of being diagnosed with cancer lead to further problems, where if you weren't diagnosed and you understood German new medicine to the point where you could just relax about it and think, okay, I know what's going on, we can live with this and it will sort itself out? And I don't know the answer to that, but I'd rather trust that than trust the treatment that killed my friend.
Yeah.
Because the treatment killed her in the end.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that for a moment.
Yeah.
I went to her bedside and she told me to tell my father-in-law that she wanted to die because she was in such a bad way and just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that again. I'm not doing that with me or my wife or my children.
No.
I think that's about it, really. So the diet is the key thing that I've changed.
Well, there's two, isn't there? There's the diet, which I think has a part, but it's also your belief has changed and you took responsibility for it.
Yes, the belief in what I can do, my abilities has changed enormously.
Yeah.
I felt when I was younger, and certainly recently, that I can do anything, actually. I've never been, one of the good things at GCHQ, there were lots of bad things, but there were some really good things, one of which was if there was a job that needed doing, there was a job advertised, they let you have a go at it. You didn't have to fit the qualifications for the job necessarily. So like the photography job, I'd never been a professional photographer. I'd only been an amateur. I think amateur photographers are generally better than professionals, actually. But I think that might be the case in lots of areas of life. But they let me do it.
Yeah.
And then you prove yourself. And if you prove yourself, they'll let you do it and carry on doing it.
Yeah.
And that was a good thing. And that suited me because my qualifications, apart from I trained to be a ship's radio officer and realised very quickly I didn't want to do that.
Mm.
So I've lost the plot a bit. So qualifications I don't think are important, but I do feel I can do anything. If somebody, I towed a boat the other day. I've never towed a trailer in my life before, but they needed boat towing, so I've got a tow bar on the van, so let's go and tow the boat. Well, if somebody else can do it, then I can do it. So
That's
why
right.
not?
Yeah.
And I think that, yeah, so mentally, my view of the world has changed. How I think about what I'm capable of changed. I think it's gone back to how I used to be more than changed. Because I used to feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I might be there. Let me have a look at my sheet of mess papers I've dropped on the floor. So I've done about Ehlers Danlos. It's hard at the moment anyway. We've all got feelings about how the world is and how the world's going to go. But I can't convince my family of this yet. But I want to set up and move somewhere where I can grow some food and keep some chicken. And I'm doing your thing, which I've been very grateful for. Lots of the things you've put on is asking a question. So I've written down a question. I didn't get there. I know that's where I want to go. I don't know how to get my wife there.
I wouldn't worry too much about that. The very intent that you want an answer to that question will move all sorts of things that are out of your grasp.
Exactly. And that I like that way of thinking.
Yeah.
It's very easy to sit down and do pros and cons. And
yeah.
My wife loves doing that with things.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get to the answer that way.
No.
So that's what I want for the future. And I think maybe, I don't know if that's the answer for everybody or anybody really, but.
Well, I think working in small communities, organizing your own food, your own resources, your own protection, your own monetary systems, your own educational platforms, everything is one very viable way of moving this thing forward, because then you're responsible to everybody else. This disconnected global parasitic system we have will be the destruction of everything if it continues. And I think we need to gather that back around ourselves. And I'm like you, I would love to be off somewhere, growing my own stuff, looking after my own things, helping people that need help, but keeping myself to myself.
Yeah, and that's all I want really, is to keep myself to myself.
Yeah. And
I want a future for my girls. I want them to be able to have a life that they want to have, not a life they can be forced into.
Yeah.
Work doesn't help. I mean, I work at Sainsbury's and I pack absolute rubbish food to deliver to people, and I see what people eat, and what a stupid way of working, really. What a stupid job to have. That I do just work hard and time myself out to deliver rubbish food to people, and that can't be a long-term thing.
Well, maybe I mean, one of the things I've really noticed, and sorry for over talking there, Graham, is that certainly in my life, and I know this to be true, that the contrast in life, in other words, experiencing that which you don't want actually helps you get more clarity on the things you do want. And you don't really know what you want, I've found, until I've experienced lots of things I didn't want, because that really starts to focus my mind. And so everything's transitional, everything you're passing through.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that, because over the years, I know I'm not the only one. I'm 57, and you accumulate so much physical stuff.
Yep.
It's ridiculous. We've got a double-length garage it's got all of boxes of blank hoodies and blank t-shirts that I've still got from when I was printing t-shirts and hoodies in 2012. They're still there in the garage, and I don't want to go back to doing that. I know I don't want to do that, and I think knowing what you don't want is yeah, I do like that way of thinking about it.
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because you're also then searching for a different answer, and one of the things, if you don't know what you want, think about what you don't want and go the complete opposite way to it. And you may get a clue from that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
contrast will serve you if you learn how to use it. It won't serve you. It becomes a weapon if you're not careful.
Yeah. It's difficult as well because work isn't the worst thing I've ever done. The trouble is with work that mentally it's very easy.
Yeah.
And it's the first job I've ever had where I can go into work, do it, go home again, and never think about it for a moment after I've walked out the door.
Wow.
And that's quite valuable in a job, actually.
Yeah.
Because it means it's nothing. The actual mentally dealing with it is nothing at all. There's pressure in being fast enough because they're a huge business, obviously, and they push us to be faster all the time. But then I'm easily fast enough, so there are advantages in that, and it's also the first time in quite a few years that we've had actually got money left at the end of the month.
Yeah.
But it's not what I want to do. Absolutely not what I want to do.
Well, then see what comes up. You as you start to search for the answers, they'll search for you and things change.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah. Okay, it's good. Thank you. Go on then. Ask me a question.
Can I ask you that question then?
Yeah.
I might come up with a different one and wrong foot you.
You might well do. Yeah, do that anyway.
Well, no, but it's the question I like to ask everyone. If you could look back, knowing what you know now, and speak to the younger you, what would you say? What advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, I'm going to come up with a really trivial one first. I was thinking about this on driving over. There are two things I bought in my life that I regret that I don't have now. Okay, they're both bicycles. I had, when I was first moved to Cheltenham GCHQ, there was a back street bike shop run by a chap called Bob Griffin, and he made bike frames to measure to fit people. He made me the most beautiful touring bike. Really nice. I can imagine having it still, and I really wish I'd kept that. It was, I can't even remember why I sold it now. I wish I still had it. I couldn't ride it because I haven't got the balance for it, but I still wish I had it. But that's a trivial one. The harder one is research. You've got to not trust people in white coats. And not, one of the things as well, it's easy to do when you're ill is to wait for somebody to come and rescue you. Wait until somebody comes and says, this is what you do. And people don't do that. That isn't how anything works. And I wish I'd known that in 2001 when all this really seriously started, when we were in Cyprus. If I'd kept away from doctors at that point, I think I'd have been better off now. So that's the main thing. And obviously I've got a huge message to my girls, the same message to my girls really, that what my oldest is 24, both got mental health issues, that I don't want her to wait for help either. I want her to find her own way, to find her answers, find her questions in your way. And I will talk to her about that, because I think I really like that idea of what are the questions, write the questions down at least. So just so you've got somewhere to start, if nothing else. Because the answer isn't going to come from outside. The answer isn't coming from mental health services or doctors or anything. No, not at all. But ultimately, we've got to deal with everything ourselves.
Yeah, you will draw the answers through yourself once you start to look where they sit, which is on the inside of you. They're not on the outside. Now, I know we go on the internet, we look around and everything, but that searching is actually inside of you. And I think that's the most important bit, to stop externalizing everything and to start looking at the world within for what you want, and then it'll come through you. It always does. That's been my experience.
Yeah, one of the things I do when I'm walking is actively not think.
Yep.
Just, it's so easy to end up, you go down these rabbit holes of somebody you've spoken to or you haven't spoken to, or I don't know, all over the place, but just to walk and not think, and things pop in your head. And things pop in my head about what happened in the past and different ways of looking at things from the past that probably make more sense than the way I've been thinking about them.
Yeah.
And
well, you can only get information coming through when you've gone quiet. It's that quiet time, and it's difficult because your mind, I have this with mine all the time. I'm on a walk and I think, where am I? Because I'm not being present to all this beauty around me. I'm off thinking about some trivial event. So just put it down there and leave it alone. And I have to do that constantly some days, but it's rewarding because, as you say, things pop into your head. You notice things you haven't seen before. And you then make space for the answers to come and the solutions to pop up, that things that have been percolating sometimes for years in the back of your mind.
Yeah, it's useful.
Yeah.
I don't know why I haven't found that before either, really. I feel a bit stupid now with lots of things, but I think that's part of growing up. It's so easy just to be ill. And I probably did that for 20 years, really. Just, what a waste, just being ill.
Well, yeah, you could say, yeah, but at the same time, it's going to give you a massive appreciation for every moment now, isn't it?
Oh, golly, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the reasons I come and sat here. Yeah. I'll show you the view before we sign off.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anywhere where you could see the view and see me at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, if you work things through, everything does serve you in the end. And that now is my first point. No matter what's going on, no matter how bad things get, I think, right, this will serve me when I look back on it. So how can I make it serve me now? And that usually gives me some real insight from another question.
Yeah, I like that as well. One of the things I try to ask myself when I remember is, would you rather be anywhere else than here right now?
Yeah.
And when I'm walking, no, never. I'm always perfectly happy. A lot of the time at home, I'd say the same.
Yeah.
Sometimes at work, I'd say the same. But I think that's quite important because I've been all over the place, done all sorts of things. You've traveled. I know you've said before that you've traveled and with work.
Yeah.
But when you're doing things with work, you rarely want to be there, do you?
Nope.
You want to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I don't have that anymore, generally.
No. I'm very comfortable where I am, and if I'm not, I go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's the way to be.
Yeah, that's one of the nice things about having a motorhome. You turn up and you think, this is cool, we'll stick here for a bit, and then you think, actually, this is rubbish, and just keep driving.
Yeah, that's a good plan.
Yeah.
One of my favourite things, I've got a grotty old Citroen Dispatch van that I bought last year. I haven't really told my wife that it's going to be a camper van, but it is going to be. It was really to carry bikes around, but it's not really what my aim was. One of the things I like doing, I've got my stove, my little gas stove, bottle of coffee, and I just park up somewhere, sit in the back on a cushion and look at the view and make me coffee, make my breakfast. Just not be anywhere else. And my wife likes the idea of the camper van, but actually liking the idea of doing it, two different things.
Yeah, we love ours. We were away in it 2 days this week, which was great.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm getting colder in it, Adrian.
Well, it's been absolutely delightful, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story because I think that will definitely help a lot of people. And it's funny, isn't it? All the messages are the same. Think for yourself, believe in yourself, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think that is the message.
Yeah.
Do your own research is the message in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me whiz the camera around and I'll show you where I am.
Thank you.
So I'm sat overlooking Torbay. I don't know if I can keep it straight. So we've got cruise ships in Torbay at the moment, and we've had cruise ships since probably last May. We have various ones come and go because they're obviously not working. And then this is Brixham over here, where I spend quite a lot of time in Brixham.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favourite walks is early in the morning. I get out early. One of the joys of starting work at 4 a.m. is that I wake up early. Whatever I'm doing, I wake up early. So I come down to Brixham, park up, walk along the breakwater, and I put a stone at the end. Every time I walk along, I put a stone off the beach onto the end of the breakwater. No idea why, but it's life.
Aye.
Yeah. Okay.
Marvelous. Mate, thank you so much for that. I'll get this all edited up and I'll give you the heads up in a day or two when I've finished it and got it up.
Okay, is the sound been okay?
There's been some wind noise and there's a bit of rustling here and there, but I'll put a high pass on it so they'll catch some of it, I hope. But it's been fine otherwise. Yeah, it's been good.
But yeah, I dropped the microphone down inside my jacket in the end.
Yeah. That was good. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Adrian.
Look after yourself, buddy. Take care.
Yeah, and you.
Cheers, mate. Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.